So I've been working on fixing up my grandpa's old bench grinder. We'll talk more about this in a future video, but just know that this thing is covered in rust. Normally a little rust is fine, but this was so rusty that it actually destroyed the on-off switch, so that rust had to go. In a previous video, I discovered that vinegar actually works really well for removing rust, but if you leave it too long, it will also damage the tools as well. So I only left the parts soaking in the vinegar for something like 5 days. And then I pulled them out so I didn't have to worry about damaging them. There was still a decent amount of rust left, so I tried wire brushing that off. And that didn't work very well either. Meanwhile, a ton of people suggested using molasses in the comments on that video. So I thought now would be a good time to give it a try. So you're supposed to mix up 1 part molasses to 9 parts water. It would be very bad if this broke. And then you let everything soak for between 1 and 2 weeks. Here we are, 23 days later. Again, I overshot things a bit, but it's been so cold lately. And now we have a chance to take a look at what's left. I can already tell you one thing that nobody warned me about in the comments is that it's moldy. I guess, big surprise, a big vat of sugar and water is gonna be pretty attractive to some fungus out there. That's a big knock against it right away. There was no mold or anything with the vinegar versus rust. But in any case, it's time to crack this open and see how bad it is. Ooh, that's gross. That also smells very bad. Hopefully you can still understand me, but this is gross. So we'll start by pulling out the first things I can get and then brushing them off with this brass bristle brush. So it should only scrub off any residue or random crap. It shouldn't be actually damaging the metal or taking away any steel or anything. And for the record, the smell is still really strong through the mask. It's like molasses mixed with horror. Ugh. Okay, it looks a lot better than it did, but so far this is far from miracle stuff. And now the jar. Oh, that cleaned up nice-ish. Next I gotta rinse these off. Some people warned that the rust would return pretty quickly. I don't know if that's what we're looking at here, or if that's like leftover molasses or something. This one has it too. Let's give everything one last good wipe. Now I'll paint on a coat of Prep-N-Etch. This stuff helps protect the metal from future rust and should also help paint stick to it for later. I'll dry these off. Then I'll spray them with PB Blaster. I'm not going to paint these because they're going to be subjected to regular adjustment and use, so this should protect them from rust instead. It's been about 15 minutes, so now I can give this a rinse to get most of the Prep-N-Etch off, and then I'll let them dry. And now to go chuck this molasses out in the yard. Okay, the process is complete, so let's review. I paid $5 for a container to soak everything in, $10 for molasses. That's 5 12-ounce jars from Walmart for $2 a piece. However, you might be able to get this stuff for cheaper from a place that sells food for cattle. For example, Tractor Supply has a 1-gallon jug of molasses for $10. I already had the Prep-N-Etch, but 1 gallon of that is about $15 from Home Depot. The process was dead simple and pretty forgiving. I didn't destroy my parts even though I let them soak an extra week. That mold though, I did not enjoy digging through a tub of moldy water, splashing it all over my clothes and the table and having to clean everything off afterward. That part was unpleasant to say the least. The results were pretty good, but molasses rust removal wasn't some magical process here. Tarnish remained on a couple of pieces, and that heavily rusted base even had some rust flaking off of it again afterward. Also remember that that base had been soaking in vinegar and had been wire brushed previously, so it already had a head start. It could be that that part had been forged in a salt factory or something like that. Or maybe the 9-to-1 solution of water to molasses was too weak. It's something to think about. Also, some people say that molasses won't remove paint. It definitely did here. Again, something to think about. Would I try molasses rust removal again? Before I answer, I just want to acknowledge that humans benefit from mold and fermentation all the time. Cheese, beer, wine, sauerkraut, penicillin, even vinegar is produced by a vinegar mother, which is basically a big blob of bacteria. That aside, I don't have to dig through mold to enjoy those things for the most part. That's what sets this process apart and makes me not want to try it again. I just don't think the grossness is worth it for run-of-the-mill projects, considering that there is still rust to clean off anyway. However, if I had to de-rust something huge like a car door or a trunk lid, I could see molasses rust removal being worth considering. Mainly because it's relatively cheap to mix up a big batch of the stuff, but if I did try it again, I'd figure out a way to get rid of that mold before diving in. I hope you liked this video. If you want to see more, then consider subscribing. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below on YouTube. I try to respond to everybody who stops by, and I really appreciate you taking the time to leave a note. Thanks for watching.